Welcome everybody to the Female Disruptors Virtual Summit. My name is Lisa Beyer and I'm happy to introduce Jessica Rafaeil. Hi, Jess.
Hi, happy to be here.
Happy that you're here too. So Jess and I go way back to University of Florida when I was her professor at UF for social media management, and we've been working together since she graduated, and now we're collaborating on Female Disruptors together. So I am so happy that Jess is going to be talking about public relations, diversity, and where do we stand with it, and what can we do to be change agents. So Jess, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. As she mentioned, we go way back and we've worked a lot together over the years. So I'm really happy to be here. Diversity and inclusion is a passion project of mine. It has been embedded in everything that I've done in my career so far. So I'm going to go through a little bit really quickly just about how I got here and why it's so important to me, because I think it's important to understand why this should matter and why it's coming from me. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what exactly DE&I is, just give a kind of high level overview, how that relates to public relations and the media landscape specifically. And then I hope that the biggest takeaway for everybody watching today is just actionable steps. How can we make these conversations surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion less uncomfortable, less taboo, and something that's more of a norm that we don't have to be constantly reminded of? It just becomes ingrained in part of our system. So to give everybody a quick background on myself, I think that my awareness for diversity started very young because I was given, I had a unique opportunity of growing up in an area that was super diverse. I had friends, from both sides of the track all my life. I went to school, I went to an art school. It was a magnet program from a very young age that was incredibly diverse. And when we're talking about diversity, I want to keep in mind people tend to think, racial diversity, gender diversity, but I'm talking about the entire spectrum of diversity. So, socioeconomic diversity as well, which is something that is often overlooked. But my awareness that that was not how everybody else was raised really hit me in college, because I began having difficult conversations with friends who didn't understand, why a certain group of people would do something, or why a certain group of people felt some type of way by a comment that was made at a party. And I started to kind of open my eyes to, okay, not everybody is, has had the experience to be surrounded by diversity of thought and diverse people and people from different backgrounds. And that's typical in college. You go to a new environment, you're surrounded by new people from different places, and that's where you kind of learn about it. My college experience was a little bit unconventional. I started out gung-ho on becoming a medical professional. And I was a bio major. I had spent my entire high school prepping to become a doctor. That was the plan. And it wasn't until about 2 years in, I realized that the medical field wasn't as altruistic as I was hoping it to be. I really wanted ultimately to help people. I wanted to have an impact. I wanted to help other people reach their goals, because I've always been kind of an ambitious person. So I want to share that with people who don't have the opportunity. So I actually quit college after my second year, and I was a little bit lost in the sauce, didn't know what to do. And I had a friend who was doing public relations and lobbying in Tallahassee. And we had met up, and she was like, you have the personality for it. You have the writing skills. You would be great at PR. So I was like, you know what? I'm lost. I'll give it a shot. I went and moved to Tallahassee on a whim, took an internship with a lobbying firm. And that's really where I got my feet wet in PR and started learning. But the unique experience that I had was that internship led to a job. And it was a cool situation. It was a law firm. It was a Black-owned law firm that also ran a media and PR company, and also ran a chamber of commerce that focused on 5 counties, but specifically working with minority and women-owned businesses. So I learned so much about the differences and opportunities from a business standpoint that Black-owned businesses, Hispanic-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses were facing in comparison to the majority. And that, comes down to funding that they get. education on how to even register your business and how to market your business and how to network. So I fell in love with helping people that I myself could identify, because I grew up in a diverse background. My mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's Iranian. I grew up in a Spanish household speaking Spanish. So I had a very diverse background. I could kind of empathize with these business owners. Long story short, fast forward, I spent a few years working for a major law firm in Florida. And I was doing public relations, governmental affairs, and event planning, and, you know, really just taking in the experience of what it meant to be a really great PR professional. But the one thing I was missing was that passion that I felt for helping people who needed it, right? I was working for a huge law firm, so we were representing like big oil companies, big energy companies, like all the bad guys. And after a few years doing that, I really wanted to go back to what felt good. So I started More Than Press. And the unique thing about More Than Press, so it's a PR agency that's run by me, but my business model really relies on outsourcing to other vendors. And I try to consciously always hire women and minority vendors. So anybody that works on a project with me, typically like they're Black, they're Spanish, they're women, they identify as LGBTQ. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. And it gives them an opportunity to grow their businesses and their portfolios as well. So I started that in about 2016, left my job in 2017, and made it a full-time gig. And in that period, I went back to school and finished my degree in telecommunications and public relations, where I met Lisa, who was my social PR professor. And so since then, I've worked with various agencies. I've done a lot of white labeling, but I do love working with clients who kind of identify as, you know, minority or women-owned businesses. One of the things that I just kind of quickly talk on, so that's, you know, how I got here and why it's so important to me. But I want to talk about like what exactly is diversity, equity, and inclusion for anybody who just, you know, you've heard the terms, but maybe they're a little bit too nuanced for you. But diversity, when we say diversity, we're looking at all characteristics, right? So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes we think race, ethnicity, and gender, but we're actually talking about age difference, right? Origin difference, religious differences, disabilities, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, education status, marital status, you name it. Like those are the values and perspectives and ideas that come together and allow for diversity of thought to happen. Equity, when we talk equity, that's, you know, the level playing field, the equal access and the fair treatment for everybody involved. And then when we talk inclusion, we're talking about the environments that we create to make people feel welcome and warm. And the reason this is so important, I think, for public relations professionals is because we deal with the media. And the media is, you know, they are the gatekeepers of information. We live in a society where we depend on our news feeds to provide us with enough information to make informed decisions and to, you know, be good humans in the world. Unfortunately, those media conglomerates, those boardrooms are extremely biased, unconsciously, implicitly, however you want to describe it, it is what it is. We're still looking, we're still looking at 70% white male seniors in board positions across the country. That's extremely problematic. When you look at the New York Times, there was some information that came out a few years ago. The New York Times, which is based in an area which is populated by 50% minorities, was 80% white at the time. So you've got 80% white males, mostly, reporting on news that impacts a completely diverse population. That's problematic.
That is.
So yeah, so as PR professionals, we have a unique opportunity to get in there and provide the right information, right? We're not just, you know, story spinners, and we're not just here to just make people look good. We want to make sure that the media is informed with accurate information about our clients, about what's happening in the world. So we're really the gatekeepers at this point, because we have the opportunity to get in there and make more informed decisions and kind of shift the way that the narratives are being put together on the media landscape.
One thing to point out, Jess, I love everything that you just said. And you don't have to be officially a publicist or a PR professional to have this influence on the media. Anybody can send a message to a reporter or to a journalist or to a producer and say, hey, this is happening. Here are the facts. You should cover this.
Yeah.
So we can all be publicists. We can all be, and like, you don't have to have a PR degree to do this. You can influence the media. Or one thing that I love about social is that you can just be your own media. You could create your own podcast and start competing against the media that aren't giving the fair share to minorities, including women.
Yeah. And I mean, tweet about it. I love going on Twitter and seeing people call out publications. You know, we're in interesting times, of course. You know, a couple years back, especially with the whole Trayvon Martin situation, and that kind of elevated into this social injustice call to action. And some things that we saw from a media standpoint were very conflicting headlines. And I think the Huffington Post did a really good article on comparing the coverage during that time and how, you know, you had a white mentally distressed gunman, and then you had, you know, who was the aggressor in the situation. And then you had headlines talking about the victims as aggressors or as thugs or as, you know, harms to society in some point. Or, you know, you see it all the time. They use the picture of Trayvon in the hoodie instead of Trayvon's, you know, at NASA. Like that's a huge media manipulation. And I think it's kind of a human duty to step in and be like, this is wrong. And this is not reflective of the truth and of the world that I live in, and demand that the media be more transparent and be more thoughtful to that approach. And I think that, you know, you made a really good point that you don't have to be a publicist, but there's kind of like I want to share my kind of steps of action that I try to apply with More Than Press. I try to apply it in my life. You know, the first thing is walk the walk. If you want to see, you know, inclusion of yourself at any table, you need to be able to offer those opportunities to other people. I had a conversation once with Jen Ayers, who is the COO of DNS Filter. She was formerly with CrowdStrike, and she's got a remarkable career. But she said to me, when she receives resumes, if she sees a woman or a person of color in that stack of resumes, she doesn't look any further. They go straight to the interview process. Why is that? Because if she doesn't do it, nobody else is going to. And those are the types of actions that we just have to take. There's not going to be a shift in social consciousness unless we do it. You know, we can sit and talk about, like, you know, best practices, but are we implementing those best practices? And are they becoming part of our day-to-day life? The next thing is we want to make these conversations the norm. We typically see, you know, especially with the Black community, the token stories, right? The kid who came out of a poor neighborhood and somehow got lucky and, you know, is now super educated and a multimillionaire leading the industry. And then those stories disappear. They become these, you know, token good stories. We need diverse stories from every perspective to become the norm. That needs to be the standard, I think, in the media industry specifically. And from an agency perspective, hold your clients accountable. You know, I make sure I work with a lot of clients that are cis white males. You know, it's not like I'm not going to work with you, but I am going to hold you accountable. What does your team look like? What are your DE&I practices internally? You know, are you doing the work? Are you creating opportunities for others? And are you impacting the bottom line? Those are things that I think as PR professionals, we need to consider. And I think most importantly, leverage your privilege. You know, I think, you know, the media has done a good job of villainizing the phrase white privilege or whatever it is, but embrace that and use it for good. I know that as a, you know, semi-racially ambiguous female, I can walk into a room and I can find opportunities that, you know, my Black female friend will not get the opportunity, or my gay male friend will not have that same opportunity. I know that that's an advantage that I have. So I try to take that and run with it and do good with it. So if anything, if you take away anything from this conversation, I want it to be, you know, create action. That's the most important thing to do. And you don't have to have a PR degree. You don't have to be a journalist specifically. You know, you can get out there and, you know, read diverse magazines. I like to, you know, look at Black-owned publications, Hispanic-owned publications, just to see, you know, what those narratives are, what's really happening in those in those communities, and compare that to how the mainstream media is putting it out there. So
I love all that, Jess. And I think another point, if you're a business owner, no matter what size business, you have the power to hire. So you have the power to, you don't have to be a CEO of a huge company to influence. You can hire minorities, you can hire diversity, and then you can then announce it to the media. And if you have an in-house PR department or somebody is in charge of public relations, you know, this is a way to like have this like bubbling up effect. Like it starts, it doesn't have to start, you know, it could start within your business, or you influence the business you work for, or you don't work for that business.
Right. Yeah, I think it can go, people need to think beyond their bubbles, right? So I might not have an immediate impact on the larger conversation, but I may inspire someone else to think differently. Or, you know, I might reach out to a journalist that identifies as a specific minority category who's passionate about those topics and give them the story first. Those little steps can have a huge impact, because it's all about creating opportunities for others in everything that we do. And that's, you know, that's the E and DE&I. We want to create equity, and that comes down to leveraging your privilege. If you've got an opportunity that you see others don't, make something happen for someone else, because the payback is always more rewarding.
And we have both experienced working for tech bro culture, white privilege. And it's, when you're in it, you don't realize how bad it is until you get out of it. Yeah. And you're the observer of how extremely like unequitable many businesses are, and many entrepreneurs in the tech industry, especially for females, and, you know, females and all minorities. It's really just mind blowing. So I'm happy to have some influence as a female disruptor to help spread this word. And Jess, I'm so happy that you're our female disruptor spreading the word together.
Yes, I love what you do. Female Disruptors is the first step, right? We're identifying the women and the people who are making a change and celebrating them, because that's how we should do it. Yes,
and Melina, hi. I see your comment. Thank you for sharing. I'm happy to hear that you're pivoting your career to focus on media and changing the narrative of diversity and what we're speaking about. And if you can connect with us, and Melina, I don't know if you know, but I'm Kennedy's mom, so we're spreading the word together.
Yes, would love to connect, Melina. Let's make it happen.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we are going to wrap this up. If you have any other questions for Jess or I, please feel free to just message us directly, and maybe we'll do another session on this and make it a little bit longer and talk in more detail and get a panel together.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm down for it. Thank you guys. And thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you. And namaste.
Namaste.